It's time to begin, so it's good to see everybody out tonight. Good to see Bobby and Lois back. And Linda survived her start back at work, back in the workforce. Number 252. Ronald's gone to Alaska. Well, heard any updates on in the sick current. Anybody know anything as far as updates on anyone on our list sick? Think about that for a minute. Number 252. We'll sing this hymn before we have our Bible study. I'll ask Roy, would you lead us in prayer? We'll sing this song. 252. I am a poor, wayfaring stranger, while traveling through this world of woe. Yet there's no sickness, cold, or danger in that bright world to which I go. I'm going there to see my Father. I'm going there, no more to roam. I'm only going over Jordan. I'm only going over home. I know dark clouds will gather round me. I know my way is rough and steep, but golden hills lie out before me, where God's redeemed shall ever sleep. I'm going there to see my Father. I'm going there, no more to roam. I'm only going over Jordan. I'm only going over home. I'll soon be free from every trial. My body sleep in the churchyard. I'll drop the cross of self-denial and enter on my great reward. I'm going there to see my Father. I'm going there, no more to roam. I'm only going over Jordan. I'm only going over home. Brother Roy, please in prayer.
Father, we're grateful for this beautiful day. We're grateful for every soul that is with us. We're mindful of those who are not able to be with us because of sickness. We pray to bless them, grant them help, and grant them a good night's rest. Give all the teachers, try to reach out to the students. Help us all to stick close to thy truth. Teach nothing but thy word. We pray in Jesus' name. Amen.
We'll start at the end of the last week before we get into the math. All right, Mark chapter 4 is where we concluded last week, the last part of that chapter. Mark chapter 4, we got down to about, let's see, question number 14, I think is where we got. It starts at verse 26. Sorry, Mark chapter 5. Verse number 26. No. Look at it. Mark chapter 4, beginning at verse number 26. I'll get there. He said, "So is the kingdom of God, as if a man should cast seed into the ground, and should sleep and rise night and day. The seed should spring and grow up. He knoweth not how, for the earth bringeth forth fruit of herself, first the blade and the ear, after that the full corn in the ear. But when the fruit is brought forth, immediately he putteth in the sickle, and because the harvest is come. And he said, Whereunto shall we liken the kingdom of God? Or with what comparison shall we compare it? It is like a grain of mustard seed, which when it is sown in the earth, is less than all the seeds that be in the earth. But when it is sown, it groweth up, and becometh greater than all herbs, and shooteth out great branches, so that the fowls of the air may lodge under the shadow of it. And many of such parables spake he the word unto them, as they were able to bear it, or hear it. And without a parable spake he not unto them. And when they were alone, he expounded all things to his disciples. And the same day, when the even was come, he said unto them, Let us pass over unto the other side. And when he had sent away the multitude, he was in the ship. And there was also with him other little ships. And there arose a great storm of wind, and the waves beat into the ship, so that it was now full. And he was in the hinder part of the ship, asleep on the pillow. And they awake him and say unto him, Master, carest thou not that we perish? And he arose and rebuked the wind and said unto the sea, Peace, be still. And the wind ceased, and there was a great calm. And then he said unto them, Why are ye so fearful? How is it that ye have no faith? And they feared exceedingly, and said one to another, What manner of man is this, that even the wind and the sea obey him? All right, so question number 14 on our sheet there says, What is the message of the parable of the growing seed, verses 26 through 29? Jesus lays out this parable right here. And we don't have an explanation like we do the parable of the tares, the parable of the sower. And so we're to kind of determine it for ourselves. But in verses 26 through 29 it says, the kingdom of God is if a man should cast seed into the ground and should sleep and rise night and day, and the seed should spring and grow up, and he knoweth not how. For the earth bringeth forth fruit of herself, first the blade and the ear, and after that the full corn in the ear. But when the fruit is brought forth, immediately he putteth in the sickle, because the harvest is come. Got an idea? I think if you look at the clues there, it says, knoweth not how. He's been talking about the kingdom and how things are going to work within the kingdom, and now he's talking about how the kingdom is going to grow. We sing a song, and I can't think of which one it is there. We know not how the Spirit moves, but we know that we believe. I think that this particular parable is teaching the fact that we don't understand exactly how the Word works in the heart of a man or in the church. That's the power of God. Life itself, on the physical side, we plant a seed into the ground. We don't understand how, a dead seed germinates and brings forth life. And that's the principle of the picture that he's drawing with this parable here is we don't see how that happens or understand how that happens in the physical world. It's just a natural thing that we accept. What he's talking about is the word put into the hearts of mankind germinates in the same way and produces a spiritual being. If you don't put the seed in the ground, physically speaking, you don't take it and put it in there, bury it, it's never going to produce in the first place. But then when you put it in the ground, it comes forth, and we don't understand how that works. If we will put the seed in the heart, it will grow. It will develop along the way. We don't understand how it does it. But if we do it and we're of the right kind of heart, if we have the right kind of heart that he talked about earlier, then we know that the same principle applies, spiritually speaking, to the seed in the kingdom and how it grows there. So, how do we measure our spirituality, our spiritual growth? How does one measure spiritual growth? If I was to look at my life and you were to look at your life from today, given the last 10 years in the church, can you or I say, well, I've grown spiritually? Spiritually. Well, all we have to do is look at your belly and we know in the last 10 years you've grown. Is that right, Sue? You swear just a little. Spiritually speaking, we see it's easy to measure our physical growth, whether it be our stomach, our muscles, or our hair falling out, whatever. We can measure age, spiritual or physical growth. Can we or do we measure ourselves spiritually speaking? Can we do it?
Yes.
Physically?
You said physically.
No, I said I've given the illustration of physically. What I want to know is how we measure ourselves spiritually.
Word living in us. You studied and you become proven unto God. The word will live in you through your actions, through what you do. You show your love for God.
Okay, actions is the key to it. We can measure it by our actions in the church or how we live our lives before people, whether it may have been a bad habit or sin that we practiced in the past or something, and we can say, I've been able to overcome this particular thing in the last 10 years. I know that I've grown spiritually speaking. By our activities within the church and what we do for the church and in the church and to people in behalf of the church, you can measure it that way.
How much you know, how much you learn.
Yeah.
What you study.
Absolutely. The amount of knowledge we have. We use that little verse every week to encourage ourselves to look at it and think about things that are spiritual in nature. This parable right here says if we dwell on that, then there is a guarantee that it will blossom into something eventually. If we put the time into it, we can say that. We may not see it in the sense of I don't feel any smarter by memorizing that verse or looking at that verse, but I have the Spirit's working within me because of my application of that seed or that word. And so I think we can measure our spirituality by physical activities, and we need to be very careful that we do measure ourselves in that way. But there are some ways in spiritual growth that can't be measured by looking at it. Study, you grow spiritually speaking, you become stronger, more founded in a spiritual way that is not necessarily seen by the outside world, and sometimes it's not completely understood by ourselves. It's kind of what this is teaching us. Sometimes we don't understand exactly how God is working on us and developing us, and we're growing in the process of spiritual growth. Any questions about that? All right, question number 15.
I think a lot of people have little or less problem with sinful man, but they have more problems with knowing to do good and doing not. That's where I think we don't grow. I don't expect necessarily going forward as Christians. When you get older, sin is not as big and temptation to us when we're young. I don't think. Sinful, we hear saints that do, I'm sure, tempt others, but it's the knowing to do right, do good, to tell man to church, to pray the gospel, that we don't do. And that's what I think the church is like stagnant, is people aren't doing good that is required also.
Yeah, we can measure it a lot easier by the sins of commission as opposed to the sins of omission. You want to make a copy of the sheet here? Get some questions. Huh? You got one?
Mark 5?
We're on Mark 4 still. We're in the last chapter. And, all right, number 15. How is the parable applicable to the church today? Verse number 32. But when the seed is sown, it groweth up, becometh greater than all the herbs, and shooteth out great branches, so that the fowls of the air may lodge under the shadow of it. If we're looking back at the time that Jesus gave this parable, he was talking about the principle of the growth of the church. Seed sown, you had 12 men at the beginning, and a few disciples, and how does the church start? That small number, and it begins to grow. It's a small group until it overwhelms or consumes the world, not necessarily the church of Christ, but the principles and the teachings of the gospel in the New Testament have had a great influence on society. You look at all the good it's done in the name of Christianity, even though it's not the church. There's a lot of good that's done, and it's grown throughout the world and had that influence. But the church, particularly the kingdom, the saved, operated in the same way. It started out with just a few, but it's grown to have tremendous power. And again, we talk about the power of the church in comparison to the world. What are we talking about? If the people look at the quote Church of Christ, would they say we're a very powerful institution or organization? No, we don't have much influence or power or whatever it may be by their standards. But as far as power within the world, this is the most powerful institution now.
Truth.
We have the truth. We have the ability to withstand evil, the devil. We have the greatest power against the greatest enemy that this world has. Yeah. The institution we have is the greatest. By the measurements that most of us use and most of the world uses, we sometimes diminish the greatness of it because we don't see what sphere we're talking about. We want to stay within the carnal, physical realm of the world. So it's applicable today because it's grown and has the power that Jesus, and it can do the same thing today. It would be wonderful if we could have the influence we had before as far as the growth of the New Testament church.
I disagree just a little bit because I do believe there's people in the world and in other denominations that still believe that members of the church know Scripture. And I'm not saying it's a whole, but they still know that they can find or go to a member of the church that they think is dedicated as Christian life and ask them questions because they know the Scripture, study the Scripture.
Yeah.
So I've had that. I mean, I need people say that to me because they know people are students of the Word.
I think that it's true. Roy's on multiple occasions in his preaching has talked about they didn't have a Bible, so they said, as a member of the Church of Christ here, let's put our hand on his head. He knows the Bible. I don't know if that's a true story or not. You remember the man they put his hand on?
You know what I think is the greatest lesson in this parable?
What's that?
If you're not going forward, you're going back.
That's true.
You either work at save souls or you work at lose.
Or you're not working at all and losing souls. Yeah. And I understand what you're saying there, Sonia. I am not diminishing from the idea that the church is still recognized within the spheres of Christianity as being the ones that hold the book or know the book better than most and get more preaching from the Word, directly from the Word, as opposed to stories and entertainment and that sort of thing. So, no, that's not to diminish from what the church has to offer and does offer compared to everybody else. 16. What responsibility does God place upon teachers? Verse number 33. And with many such parables spake he the word unto them, as they were able to hear it. What responsibility is placed upon teachers?
Teach the truth, always open about.
Okay, all right. They're no less accountable for the truth as far as that goes. But what I was looking at in the verse, it says, as they were able to hear it. Jesus refrained. I mean, he just didn't dump it on them and say, here, you go take it and do the best you can with it. He gave it to them so that they had it. They could handle this part, learn it, and apply it, and then he gave them some more and some more and some more until they were able to grow and expand. I've had and heard of preachers saying, I have to, when I go in this congregation, I have to, I'm going to use the word dummy it down. That's not exactly the right way to do it, but they just don't have the spiritual ability to go deep into it. And, that's a sad commentary as far as that's concerned, that the congregation is not run to the point, but that's the way it is. As far as faith is concerned, are we all on the same footing as far as our faith is concerned? Are we all equal? No, we're all at different places. We all need to be growing to get better and better, but that's just the reality of it. And some of us have been in the church, most of us in here have been in the church a long, long time, so we should be having a very deep faith strong ability with that. But there are some people who don't, and it depends on where you are in life and what other responsibilities you have in life and how much time you have to it. Some of us have greater opportunities because we've been put in a position where we have to make time and take time to do more. Others have other responsibilities. They have to make time, but they don't have as much time to take and make from. And so we're all at different places, but we all still have the same responsibility. As far as teachers are concerned, if I get up here and I start spewing off a bunch of big words and talking about theological mumbo jumbo that, y'all don't know anything about, but really I don't know anything about it, you don't say it. There's not much chance of that's what she said in the corner. But the fact is, there are some educated intellectual people who like to talk in high sophisticated forms. That's wrong. If the audience is not in that position, if you've got a bunch of theologians there who want to discuss that sort of thing, then that's one thing. But if you've got the average Christian and they want to talk all this stuff, then that's wrong. There's a responsibility to feed the flock, feed the Christians what they're capable of handling and help them move forward or grow a little bit at a time. I think is kind of what this is trying to explain to us. And as we look back at this was a comparison within this chapter of the listeners and the teachers, kind of what this was talking about in a general form in this whole chapter. All right, number 17. Is there an inner circle of disciples today? Verse number 34. 34 said, but without a parable spake he not unto them, and when they were alone he expounded all things to his disciples. He talked to the big crowds, then he pulled the apostles, the inner circle around, and he gave them other information. Two different groups of people. We have that today.
In some respects, if you, like who's been visiting with us recently, and they've gone into 3 times, but those boys and their uncle, they don't have any problem. And if you don't try to bring it back down to their level somewhat, just start from the beginning, it's pointless. They've got learned anything in their head.
Okay,
I can adjust somewhat to your crowd.
I agree 100%. Sue, do you have something you want to add to it? What I'm seeing in this though is that he gave all his teaching, but then there was this exclusive group of men right here that got a more in-depth look at it. There's 2 groups. Do we have that today? I don't think that we do. We're all getting the same, we can all go to the same source and get the same information, and so it's not divided into apostles and disciples. I'm looking at.
I understood that, but you still have a group that you study
and that, and I understand what you're saying. We have associations. Yeah, I think that's probably true. There are people that we're closer to than we gyrate toward. Yeah.
They can study together and get taught more than in other people.
Well, not just that, like you go to PPT and there's some classes that I would go in and I couldn't keep up. I wouldn't follow because they're talking about hermeneutics and the Greek and, different maybe lexicons that they studied. And I'd be a little lost.
But you're not excluded from that.
I'm not excluded. I don't think it means excluded.
But he took these men aside and expounded to them more clearly. That's all I was looking at. I agree with what y'all are saying. I'm just saying that at that particular time, because of the conditions and the circumstances and what he was laying out, he needed these men to understand it more clearly than these people on a quicker basis, and so that they could go out. He was getting ready to send them out 2 by 2 to teach, and so they needed to understand the principles that he was laying out as clearly as possible, as far as that goes. Anybody else? Number 18. How soon after receiving this teaching of Jesus did the disciples encounter the storm on the sea? Verse number 35. The same day. All right, so Jesus has expounded all this stuff to them, drawn them off exclusively and told them all this stuff, and they run into trouble almost immediately. This kind of is a little bit of an indication of how life really is. We can be in church and we can do our best to get close to God and doing everything that we can to grow spiritually speaking, and it just seems like almost immediate. I mean, what happens when people become Christians? They're hit with something almost immediately. Trouble's going to happen, no matter how hard we try, no matter what we try to do as far as getting close to Jesus and growing spiritually speaking, it's going to happen. And it's all, we just don't know when it's going to happen. Number 19, the effect of the storm on the disciples on this occasion teaches us what? What was the reaction of the disciples to the storm? Fear. So, they had just been with Jesus. He expounded to them the kingdom. They had been given all this information to grow spiritually speaking. And the physical problem comes on, and the reaction is to be afraid. Is that we know it's not an abnormal thing. Is it wrong? Okay. Is that not the same thing for us if we allow the problems of this life to cause us to be afraid or turn away? So that's a normal human reaction. But as we've looked at throughout all our studies of the gospel, normal is not Christianity. When we talk about human nature, spirituality and human nature are at odds. You go all the way back to Matthew, the Beatitudes. If you look at the poor in spirit, that particular thing, being humble, is not the way of the world. That's against human nature. Looking out for number one, taking care of number one, pride, that sort of thing is human nature. Jesus says Christianity, the kingdom, is going to be contrary to human nature. This is one of the things that shows right here. Human nature, be afraid. Don't think that God's going to take care of things. Had they drowned, would God have taken care of things? Well, if they did everything they could to overcome it and they still drowned, would it have been God took care of things? Yeah, I think that's the point. From our standpoint, from the human nature standpoint, God didn't take care of them, they drowned. But by the spiritual aspects, they had been with Jesus Christ. They had been doing everything they could to be the kind of people that God would have them to be. They died. They were in the right state. God took them on to heaven or whatever. Then by the correct reasoning, that was a good situation. So we've got to be very careful. We evaluate it from the right standpoint, the spiritual standpoint, as opposed to the physical hazards or hardships that we have to face. Number 20, what was their reaction to Jesus? Verse number 41. More fear. What was the question that they asked of? Had they seen anything that would cause them to think that he was the Son of God already? Yeah. He had healed several people, and, miraculously they knew who he was, but now here is something else. It just shines a light on exactly who it is. So it opened their eyes even more. All right, any questions about that or any other comments? All right. Mark chapter 5, there's 43 verses. It's about 25 till we'll read it and start. I guess we can just go down to where we get through, and we'll just carry on through to the next week as far as that goes. So, all right, Mark chapter 5. It says, "And they came over unto the other side of the sea, into the country of the Gadarenes. And when it was come up out of the ship, immediately there met him out of the tombs a man with an unclean spirit, who had his dwelling among the tombs, and no man could bind him, no, not with chains, because he had been often bound with fetters and chains, and the chains had been plucked asunder by him, and the fetters broken in pieces. Neither could any man tame him. And always, night and day, he was in the mountains and in the tombs, crying and cutting himself with stones. And when he saw Jesus afar off, he ran and worshipped him, and cried with a loud voice, and said, What have I to do with thee, Jesus, thou Son of the Most High God? I adjure thee by God, that thou torment me not. And he said unto him, Come out of the man, thou unclean spirit. And he asked him, What is thy name? And he answered, saying, My name is Legion, for we are many. And he besought him much more that he would not send him away out of the country. Now there was there nigh to the mountains a great herd of swine feeding, and all the devils besought him, saying, Send us into the swine, that we may enter into them. Forthwith Jesus gave them leave, and the unclean spirits went out and entered into the swine, and the herd ran violently down a steep place into the sea. They were about 2,000, and were choked in the sea. And they that fed the swine fled, and told it in the city and in the country, and they went out to see what it was that was done. And they came to Jesus, and see him that was possessed with the devil, and had the legion sitting and clothed and in his right mind, and they were afraid. And they saw it, and they that saw it told how it befell to him that was possessed with the devil, and also concerning the swine. They began to pray him to depart out of their coasts. All right, let's cut off right there. We'll just go down through the questions I've got picked out on this one, and go from there. So let's see. Let's go on down to verse number 20. I'll read down to verse number 20. I think that concludes this particular account right here as far as in this chapter. It says in 18, And when he was come into the ship, he that had been possessed with the devil prayed him that he might be with him. Howbeit Jesus suffered him not, but saith unto him, Go home to thy friends, and tell them how great things the Lord hath done for thee, and hath had compassion on thee. And he departed and began to publish in Decapolis how great things Jesus had done for him, and all men did marvel. All right. Question number 1. What was wrong with the man who met Jesus when he came out of the ship? Verse number 2. Unclean spirit, all right? Oh, you're off the hook. You answered the question. Everybody else tell me what an unclean spirit is. We got any today?
Yes, most certainly.
All right. Can we see them?
You won't believe all spirits are clean today.
No, I don't. How is this unclean spirit different from today, though? How is this particular unclean spirit that we're looking at here in Mark chapter 5 different from the unclean spirits of today?
They not have the supernatural powers that the experience did when Jesus was there.
On the side of good, what abilities did men have? Were they given at this time? Miraculous gifts. There were miraculous gifts in this day and age. Jesus cast out the spirits. He gave them the ability to cast out spirits and to heal and to speak in tongues. Do we do that today?
No.
We don't have that ability on this side. The unclean or the evil side does not have the miraculous or the supernatural, I guess would be the way to do it in this day and age. That was the difference. This was a possession per se, and it doesn't mean by the extent that this man unwillingly was overtaken by the spirit. That's not what this is talking about in that respect. When he talks about an unclean spirit, he's coming to take this man. This man was living in such a way that the Spirit was able to use him. And the degree that he got to now, we don't know exactly how it was, and the miraculous part we don't understand. But we understand that every person who is a person who is of good mental capabilities, sound reasoning, is accountable for the choices that he makes. That was true back then as well. There was no overwhelming of anybody by evil outside of their power, their control. There's never been that way. All mankind has always had free moral agency and the ability to choose between right and wrong. This man chose wrong, and it got so bad that the Spirit was able to overwhelm him in a miraculous, supernatural way. But we don't understand that completely. Does that make kind of sense? I just want us to know that this was not, this was something that was led up to by the choices of this man. That he was unclean, that means that he was a worker of evil, had evil spirits, demons within him. Number 2, where did this man live? Among the tombs. All right, that gets Sandra off the hook. Everybody else? Just teasing. Any I don't know about that now. I didn't quite read that into it. I thought it interesting when you go down the path of wickedness, and we can see it in the world today. You talking about running across people whose lives are just completely destroyed, and they're just barely hanging on and doing all this, not doing anything to move forward in life as far as advancing and benefiting themselves and the rest of the world. They're running off and leaving their kids. They're looking for drugs, and they're living from house to house or place to place, and people are throwing them out. Living in the tombs is an indication to me that when you get to the depths of this kind of wickedness, and wickedness itself, it leads into places that you wouldn't go if you were in a sound, reasonable mind. That's the idea that I get from this. Is when we turn our lives over or give up on God, then there's no telling where we might end up. Once you cross the line, we like to think, well, if I do this, this is a minor thing, maybe forsaking the assembly. And then a little later on, you're not coming once in a while, and then eventually you're not coming at all, and then, you're doing this, and then you're doing that. It never, once you cross the line, you never know where you're going to end up. This man ended up in the tombs. Where will we end up if we give up on God and truth and the church? And it just takes one step at a time to get there. I'm sure that this man just didn't go from at home and then all of a sudden decide that he's going to live in the tombs and be overcome.
When my cousin got her RN degree at Tennessee Tech downtown, they would pay off a big chunk of her degree if she would work at the state aside from the crazy house. And so she did. She worked there for a year, paid off about 80% of her degree. And she net throughout that whole year, she was a high percentage, like more than 60% of the people there were members of the church, former members, or had a direct affiliation, parents, grandparents, with the church and knew much about it. So, like you said, once you step away, anything overtakes you.
I heard, and I wasn't familiar with that particular story right there, but I've always heard that as far as those who are mentally and emotionally disturbed in ways that are where they've been deceived, or try to get help professionally in some form or fashion, have had, the majority of them have had some background within the church, not part of, not be a local situation, something like that. Once you let go, there's the path to where you end up. There's just no telling how deep and depraved it gets. Number 3, what was used to try to bind the man that failed?
Chains and fetters.
All right, chains and fetters. How can we look at that and apply it today? They tried to stop this man by force, physical means, worldly standards, whatever, and he could not be. Of course, the means by which this man was able to do what he was able to do was miraculous. You know, the chains, being able to break chains and fetters and that sort of thing, was beyond the natural. But I just think that it illustrates for us the fact that in order to get people's lives right, spiritually speaking, it has to be done in a spiritual way or by the guidelines that God gives us. There's no way that we can fix a person who's got a problem. In a lot of areas, as far as that, because they may get up and become clean, but as far as their soul is concerned, there's no physical way that there's no counseling, no activities or anything that can really fix the whole of the problem that's in the soul of mankind.
Government says give them drugs, get them off drugs. That's what they're doing.
It's just a different kind of drug, yeah. But that's kind of the idea that I was trying to get there. There's nothing that can be done other than the gospel of Jesus Christ to really fix a man's spiritual problems. What did the man do to himself night and day? Night and day, he was in the tombs and going about crying, cutting themselves. No pride in life, no quality of life outside of Christ, outside of the truth, outside of what's right. You're just abusing yourself. He was just abusing himself. On seeing Jesus, what did he do? Verse number 6. All right. Upon seeing Jesus, he worshipped him. Who did the worshiping here? We have two. We have the spirit of the man, and we have this unclean spirit. Who worshipped Jesus? Doesn't say. Who do you think? Do you think the man even knew about Jesus? I don't. I agree with you.
That's what I think is unbelievable. The spirit of
What'd you say?
He knew him when he said the Son of Man, most high God.
Right.
He knew him. He found him.
Right, and we can see and read that, but the question is, was this the man or the demon that knew him? The man? Okay, well, there's no way to know. I kind of agree that it's... Yeah. Well, the demons were the spiritual beings that were cast out from before God because of the sin happened before the Garden of Eden, as far as that goes. They knew who Jesus Christ was because they had a deal with him. The spirits were created beings like the devil was. So they had a knowledge before of Christ, before he came on the scene here. I'm not sure if this man even knew who Jesus was. There's no way to know for sure. But I just thought it was interesting. He fell down and worshipped him. It doesn't make sense that the unclean spirits would worship him, but the Bible also says in Philippians 2 that every knee shall bow and every tongue shall confess Jesus Christ is Lord. There's going to come a time when everybody acknowledges that Jesus Christ is Lord, and the demons are going to acknowledge Jesus Christ as Lord. Doesn't mean that they're going to be saved, but they're going to acknowledge who the authority and power is, because that's where the problem is a revolt against the authority and power of God and His Son Jesus Christ is what's going on. He had to acknowledge it, whether it was the man or the demon, that this was the Son of God. And that's the way it's going to be, no matter whether we do it now or we do it at judgment. Right.
And down here he said, and he worshiped. So it was bad, but man.
Okay. All right. Well, who's he having the discussion with? The demon? What's your name?
Just asking the person who cried out, cut himself, man. What's your name?
Yeah, but that wasn't the man's name. Hey, let's look at it, okay? Huh? Well, yeah, he did, physically he did it. But, in both ways, it could be that. You look at it, it says, but when he saw Jesus, in verse number 7, he cried with a loud voice and said, "What have I to do with thee, Jesus, thou Son of God most High? I adjure thee by God that thou torment me not." Who's speaking right there? Who is in jeopardy of being tormented at this particular point? Unclean spirits. So that's where I've drawn my conclusion. He's having a discussion with the spirit. The man is there, and the spirit of the man is there, but the spirit has been overtaken by the demon at this time. The demon is in control of this man. He had given up his free moral agency a while back.
He's given up, he would have
Right.
never let Jesus tell Jesus to take the demons out of him. He bound him and come to his senses a little bit to know Jesus and to want him to get the demon out of him.
You agree?
But if it had been the demons, they wouldn't have said, "Take me out of him." They would have wanted to keep him.
No, I know, but they were saying, "Don't take us out." They weren't saying take us out. The demons were saying, "No, why are you here to torment us? Don't cast us out."
You can have an evil spirit.
He's talking to, but there, when he said come out of the man, he's talking to the demons, come out of the man, unclean spirit.
Yeah.
And then he asked the demon, "What is your name?"
Yeah.
And that was there. When he was talking, I think the man had come to his senses enough to know Jesus. I don't think it was the demons that knew Jesus. They knew Jesus, but I don't think they wanted to use that help.
No, they definitely didn't want the help of Jesus, and that was not even in the picture as far as I can decide. I just thought that was it's kind of hard to see there, but we do understand that either way, if it's just the man or the demons and the man, they both prostrated themselves before Jesus and proclaimed him as the Son of God. They were saying, "Don't destroy us, don't torment us." And we'll conclude right there. Looks like the rest of the bunch is coming in. Part of that, keep that sheet. We'll use it next week. We'll start at question number 7. $655. $655 will be our hymn of invitation. It's good to see everybody here tonight. Appreciate your presence. Hope that you benefited and grown from your taking advantage of the opportunity to be here and study God's Word. It'll help you in your efforts to live for Jesus and look forward to the rewards of heaven. Before we conclude tonight, though, we want to spend just a minute thinking about our soul's relationship to God and to make any changes that might be necessary for us to do in order to be right with God. As the setting for what we want to think about tonight in our invitation, I want to think about, just entitled this, Sitting in the Crow's Nest. Sitting in the crow's nest. Does everybody in here know what a crow's nest is? I'm talking about a bird's nest. Crow's nest was on the old ships like Columbus had. They had at the top of the main mast, they had a basket or a barrel that they sat up there lashed to the main mast. And the man would get up there in the top of that. Out of that crow's nest, he would watch around to see what was going on. See if it was land, see if it was a hazard, another ship, or whatever problem there was. And so that was the crow's nest back then. That's what they used before they had radars. They could see things like that. But I'm thinking for just a minute about the idea of this crow's nest, and us being in the crow's nest of this ship on life's sea, so to speak. When you think about the situation down on the coast with this massive hurricane and what's going on down there, if you've been watching on TV and seeing all the pictures of how massive it is and how destructive it is, it's interesting that with all the technology that we've got today to be able to look at the hazards and the hardships and the dangers that are coming on, there's not anything in the world that can be done about it. And they just have to sit and wait. That thing crawls along at 1 mile an hour or 4 miles an hour, and it's just, is it going to hit here? Is it going to hit there? Is it going to turn? Where is it going to go? What's going to happen? And so everybody's making plans and not making plans and doing all this. Well, nothing's changed in life as far as that goes. Even from the crow's nest, they could look and see what was going to happen to some degree, but at that point, they had to make a decision on what they were going to do. They could look at the problem, look at what's coming, and they had to make a decision, and then they had to make plans or adjustments or whatever needed to be done there. So time has not changed anything, whether it's the crow's nest or the radars or whatever it is. Mankind is going to be faced with problems in life. We're all going to be faced with situations that are going to need to be dealt with. What we need to understand, and we talked a little bit about this in class in the sense of being prepared or not doing anything. And what's important is that we understand that there's always going to be situations that come on us. I was listening to the radio night before last on the way to work, and a college student called in, or soon-to-be college student, asking about what school to go. Should she go to a state school, knowing that she was a very conservative individual, Christian individual, and knowing how she would be confronted by the liberal ways there and all this talk there. And the man gave her some good advice. Just, if you think that your faith can hold up to it, then you'll be okay. What you believe, if you're strong enough in what you believe, then you'll be okay. But if not, then you need to make adjustments so that you can be in a place where you're more secure. And he offered some places, schools that were related to conservative ideas or religious ideas or whatever. But we can look and see that the confrontation and problem is on the way, no matter what. We're going to have the storms in life. And I've got a song picked out right here that I want us to think about as far as the storms of life are concerned. And that's number 665 in the songbook, Till the Storm Passes By. It says, in the dark of the midnight have I all hid my face, while the storm howls above me and there's no hiding place. Amid the crash of the thunder, precious Lord, hear my cry, keep me safe till the storm passes by. And the chorus goes, till the storm passes over, till the thunder sound no more, till the clouds roll forever from the sky. Hold me fast, let me stand in the hollow of thy hand, keep me safe till the storm passes by. If we're going to be able to stand in the storms of life, we're going to have to be in the hollow of God's hand. That's the only place that we have any hope whatsoever. The only way that we can know that we have that is if we're obedient to what Jesus Christ said for us to do. If we haven't been obedient to Jesus Christ and the plan of salvation, hearing, believing, repenting, confessing, and being baptized, we're not standing in the hollow of Jesus' hands, and we have no hope of withstanding or making it through the storm of life. If we're not living faithfully, if we know that there's sin in our lives as a Christian, then we're not standing in the hollow of God's hand, Jesus' hand, and we have no hope of making it through the storm. The only way that we can have the hope of making it through the storms of life to the end of being saved in heaven is standing in the hollow of God's hand, being faithful to Jesus Christ. So as we think about our relationship to God tonight, have I been faithful to God, true to Christ, and being obedient to what He said to do to become a Christian? Now, will that up my commitment to Christ, or if I fail to need the next things right there by confession, prayer, repentance, and prayer? The question comes to you. As we stand in the storms of life, are you prepared? Are you ready? Are you going to pray? If you know that you need to secure your position within the hollow of the hand of Jesus, I want to encourage you to think seriously about it. If you need to make a change, do it now. As we stand while we sing.
There's a fountain reaches for you and me. Let us sing so to and free. It's a fountain from the source of love, and He bids us all freely free. Will you come to the fountain free? Will you come? It's for you and me. Thirsty soul, hear the welcome call. Is the fountain open for all? There's a rock that's left and no soul is left that may not its good water shed. It's for you and me, and its stream I see. Let us taste of joyfully there. Will you come to the fountain free? Will you come? It's for you and me. Thirsty soul, hear the welcome call. Is the fountain open for all? Thank you for being here. We'll see you Sunday morning at 9:30 for Bible study, 10:30 for worship. I want to remind the men of the business meeting that we have Sunday at 5 p.m. Are there any additions to our prayer list that we need to add this time as far as our sick or updates? I know that Ron is traveling for work. He should be in Alaska or on his way to Alaska. Eric, I believe, is in E-Town, Elizabethtown this week for work. Anything else that we need to mention of that I'm leaving off? Hope you have a good rest of the week. And ask Brother Chandler to lead us in the closing prayer.
Thank you, Father. Thank you for this day. Thank you for this time. Let's come together and learn you. Please help us to think about what we learned tonight. Help us to use it in our everyday walks of life. Please watch over us, keep us safe. Please in all of our sins. In Christ's name. Amen.
Yeah, I've got one next weekend.
Oh, y'all have a good trip?
Maybe more Saturday or 13th. Where's that one at? That one is down.
That's the main thing.
old DMV used to be again. Underpass, like that.
Get some,
There's
hats
a lot
on.
of good stuff.
Oh, you are.
We've already